It's the 7th day of the first month of the year 2022. Welcome to The Pulse. We are coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlimli on your digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. We are your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. This afternoon, as we celebrate 30 years of uninterrupted constitutional rule, the NCCE is urging the public to defend and uphold the 1992 Constitution against interference. On The Pulse this afternoon, we're asking, has the 1992 Constitution outlived its purpose? As the political class is being accused of lacking political will to support moves to overhaul the Constitution.
Understand that any change of it will go substantially to affect the ways in which we have structured government that favors a certain limited class of people. And so they continue to throw in this review there. They give you a sense of buzz and excitement about it.
We'll also hear from you on what you think of the Constitutional Day.
It reminds us of Constitution, 1992 Constitution, how it came about and the logics behind why they were put in place.
So I don't necessarily think that a special day should be designated for a Constitution Day.
Also this afternoon, Member of Parliament's Communications Committee tasked government to adopt two-pronged approach, including deploying a self-registration app in dealing with the congestion that has characterized the second phase of the SIM card re-registration. We have details as the Telecoms Chamber announces plans to move the registration to home, schools and businesses.
Sure that other venues and other locations, including going into the communities, going into institutions.
Plus, it's exactly a year after he was sworn in for a second four-year term. We ask, has the Akufo-Addo government satisfied the expectations of Ghanaians since the December 2020 elections?
The first term was better, but I believe the COVID-19 affected his second term.
First term is a little better. None of them is okay, but the first term is better. Second term, not encouraging at all.
And latest road accident statistics released by the Police Motor Traffic and Transport Department reveal nearly 3,000 people lost their lives to road crashes in 2021, a 13% rise in figures from the year before. We'll hear from the MTTD. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities, Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Remember, we're also streaming live on YouTube and all our social media handles at JoyNews on TV. Tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is @Nana Aisha. Please stay for details. This afternoon, the National Commission for Civic Education is urging Ghanaians to unreservedly uphold and defend the 1992 Constitution against interference and interruptions as we celebrate 30 years uninterrupted constitutional rule. The day marks coming into effect of the 1992 Constitution and the birth of the Fourth Republic on this day in 1993. The NCCE, in a statement released in commemoration of this day, quotes Article 3.4 of the 1992 Constitution to remind every citizen of Ghana of his or her duty to defend the Constitution, stand in defense against any person, group or issue that threatens the very fabric of our democracy, and must reject oppressors' rule in any form or anything that seeks to disturb the peace and stability we enjoy. The NCCE notes that despite these gains, strengthening our democracy by reforming and improving our constitutional infrastructure should once again be made a national priority. This will help tackle constitutional deficit and aspects of the 1992 Constitution that seemingly breed apathy from the public, disengages the public in major aspects of governance at the grassroots and national levels, further deepening marginalization, promotes excessive powers of the executive, and festers the cause of corruption. This is the thrust of our discussion this afternoon. Let's begin with your responsibility as a citizen of Ghana and speak with the Communication and Corporate Affairs Director of the National Commission for Civic Education, Joyce Afutu, who joins us via phone. I'm grateful for your time, Madam, and happy Constitution Day to you, Joyce.
Happy Constitution Day to you, Aisha.
What kind of reflection should all Ghanaians be having on a day such as this one?
The reflection is that, in fact, the Constitution is one of the pillars that have held the whole nation together for the past 29 years. And for that matter, every Ghanaian must cherish this feat that we have all attained and ensure that we guard the feat and so that we can grow our democracy and also continue to uphold a constitutional rule.
Now, in your statement in commemoration of today, you are asking Ghanaians to uphold and defend the 1992 Constitution against interference and interruptions. What exactly do you seek of us as Ghanaians?
Okay, for upholding and defending the Constitution, I mean, living within the tenets of the law is one of them. And if we have anything that will derail the constitutional rule of this country, it is the duty of every citizen to protect and defend the Constitution. So if things are going on that are contrary to the laws that is being used to govern this country, that is what we are seeking every Ghanaian to be watchful and mindful and ensure that we protect and safeguard our nation from any external threat. Currently, you can realize that in the border regions and all that, there's a threat of violent extremism and all that. So we have engaged citizenry living around the border areas to be able to be vigilant and then ensure that they will not succumb to any threat by extremism. And also we have engaged the youth of this country and people nationwide. So we are saying that if we are celebrating this day, we must all know that we are together because of the Constitution that is holding us together. Hello.
Now, you have also admitted in your statement of today that despite the gains we've made, strengthening our democracy by reforming and improving our constitutional infrastructure should be made a national priority. And you say it will help tackle constitutional deficits and aspects of the 1992 Constitution that seemingly breed apathy from the public. And I'm just asking this, and you say that kind of thing disengages the public in major aspects of governance, deepens marginalizations, and you say it promotes excessive powers of the executive. Now, in the view of the NCCE, what exactly should the citizenry be focusing on and doing to strengthen our democracy and also prevent acts such as corruption from happening?
Yes, for issues that are supposed to be reformed, we are looking at active citizens' participation and looking at our grassroots. In 2014, the Commission undertook a research on this assembly, and close to 70% of the people wanted to elect their own MMDCs so that they can be accountable to them. Currently, that they are appointed, the appointees know that they are accountable to the appointing authority. So if we revisit that issue of election of MMDC, it is one of the reforms that will encourage grassroots participation of the citizenry. Also, if you look at the independence and enhancing governance institutions, the IGI, which NCC is included, the Commission is looking at the establishment of a democracy fund so that the independent governance institution really be independent and then undertake their work. Also, on the issue of appointment of majority of people from Parliament, we are looking at proper separation of power. But when it happens this way, it means we are not seeing that. So if all that can be reformed so that we can meet the aspiration of Ghanaians, that is one of the issues that NCC is calling for. Also, we are looking at the issue of gender equality. If you look at half of the population, if you look at the representation in Parliament, there's nothing good to write home about, even though there has been an increase. So if, as a country, we can ensure that as part of the reform, we can adopt a quota system, or we can pass the affirmative action bill into law to enhance that one. It will also promote a healthy democracy. Then we are looking at how the youth of this country, we can find ways of engaging them, because when they are disengaged, that is when we also start to other pressure around them. So these are some of the things that among other things, among formed.
I'm grateful for your time. Joyce Sefutu is Communication and Corporate Affairs Director at the NCCA. We can now broaden the conversation and speak with constitutional lawyer and acting director of the Ghana School of Law, Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman, who joins us via phone, and also Martin Kwebu, who is also a constitutional lawyer, who joins us via Zoom. I'm grateful for your time, gentlemen, and happy Constitution Day to you all.
Yeah. Hello.
All right, Mr. Agyeman, let me start with you and I'll put the question straight directly. Yes. Has the Constitution 1992 outlived its purpose?
Certainly not. Certainly not. Because if you're a constitutional historian in Ghana, you realize that despite its imperfections, this is the best constitution that we all have. Yes, certainly it may need some overhaul a little bit, but to come to a conclusion that this constitution has outlived its usefulness, I think it will be overstretched. Because this constitution has outlived even the expectations of so many people, knowing the constitutional history of Ghana. Because the predecessor of this constitution lasted for 22 months. The predecessor of the 1979 constitution also lasted for 22 months. And for this constitution to live from 1993 to today, I believe that we have to give praise to this constitution, notwithstanding some of the imperfections that you and I may have identified.
Now, if we all agree that the Constitution in its entirety is not problematic, but portions are what we should review, I want us to take us one after the other. Which portions are we talking about? And I know the strongest point, I believe, will be the executive powers. There are those who believe the executive wields too much powers, which is problematic. Are you of the same view?
Certainly, a constitution itself as a framework document, the workings of it depends on the people who occupy offices. And therefore, sometimes the words alone are not sufficient, but the actions of those or the actors, because the Constitution is just a combination of words, but then the practical nature of it. And therefore, when it comes to the executive power vis-a-vis others, of course, you may think that the executive power is overbearing. For instance, the appointment of so many public servants that are given to the president to appoint. Obviously, I think that the first option that we should have adopted was even the appointment or the election of MCE, DCE. Look at the number, a lot of them. But of course, we were unable to reach a consensus to take that power from the executive president and give to the local people. And then also public services, certainly in other jurisdictions, if you want to appoint an electoral commissioner, it should not be by the president who will be contesting election for re-election or whatever. Maybe it should have been done by somebody else. But that notwithstanding, I believe that if we can look at all these things and maybe come out with a consensus that some of, and go back to the 1969 model. You see, the 1969 model introduced what we call the dilution of the office of the executive, in which they introduced the military council, the armed forces council, the police council, the media council. All these were aimed at reducing the power of the executive so that others who are non-political will be involved in the appointment or appointment of certain key institutions. So maybe we can look at it. We have gone through a lot of things. We have seen what is going on. We have done it before, and that was the 1969 model. We can look at the 1969 model vis-a-vis the 1979 model, and then maybe move on to dilute the power of the executive. But since politicians were not in consensus at them, even to the election of MCs, and that was shut down, I don't know. Maybe some people didn't want the dilution of the executive power. Otherwise, that would have been the first step to dilute the power so that those at the grassroots will elect their own MCEs, their DCs. That would have been the first step. Then we will move on to all these parastatals and SOEs. Because if you have a board, I don't see how a president should appoint a chief executive for a board. Right? So a board is constituted and then the president appoints the CEO for the board. I think that these are areas we can all consider, but we should have started from the political angle where MCEs and DCEs will be elected by the people, because that will require just a constitutional amendment which does not require a referendum. We should have done it. But as I said, it's not too late. Maybe we can start the discussion and then change the dynamics.
For us to go back to the report of the Constitution Review Commission.
Well, I remember very well my position on the Constitution Review Commission. In fact, I was consulted and I made my position clear. See, the Constitutional Review Commission was dead at best. Dead at best. Why? Because the Constitutional Review Commission was not based on consensus building, but on the promotion of a manifesto of a political party. And if you do that, there's no way you will get the others to support. So I remember saying that if you want to do a constitutional review, what we need to do is a broad consensus. But rather, if is tailored in support of a manifesto of a political party, others may not join. So I remember very well, even though I was a Civic consultant, I made my position clear. And also, the Constitutional Review Commission, I don't know whether it was to rewrite the Constitution, because if you want to start a constitutional review, you should rather adopt some of the basic issues. You see, it has over 100 and something proposals. If you have 100 and something proposals for constitutional review, then you better rewrite the Constitution. They should have looked at the critical areas where we have problems. So I suggested, for example, that the ministers being MPs should be looked at again. These are things that we can do. The minister being also an MP. I think we should have looked at it from that perspective. And then also this Article 71 emoluments issue.
Yeah.
These are critical issues that Ghanaians have been talking about. I thought that we should have looked at those critical issues and do the amendment rather than having all these so many questions. At the end of the day, you won't get a broad consensus. But if we want to go back, we should go back in a broad consensus where it is not a political party's manifesto, but rather all political actors and Ghanaians with the CSOs agree that these are the salient. I believe that now we have identified some key issues that there will be a broad consensus, and we can all look at it. But if we are to go back to those days, I remember very well, I said it, that it was a waste of money because it will not get anywhere. And I think I've been vindicated.
Now, I have a hold for me, Ms. Opoku-Agyeman, because Fix the Country convener Oliver Bakavamo says the political class is unwilling to support moves to overhaul the Constitution. The pressure group has for some time been calling for the fashioning of a new Constitution. According to Oliver, political actors in opposition only pay lip service to the change in the Constitution, but when they actually assume power, they are unwilling to cause for the change. He says that it is the case because the current document favors the political class. He cites the absence of the budgetary allocation to constitutional deliberations show that it is not a priority for the current government. He spoke on the AM show with Israelite.
So, I was part of that constitution review process. And I understand that a lot of times, because we are too distracted by shiny processes, we do not interrogate them enough. And I say this because when that process was put in place, it came again under a part of the Constitution as a commission of inquiry powers that was used to set it up. What it meant in essence was that whatever report that was produced was only going to be an advice to the president, an advice he could refuse to take on board or not. So the manner in which it is even set up tells you that there's no real commitment that whatever the product of that process is would lead to anything substantial and tangible. And the history has shown us that that's exactly what happened. So we have to be very mindful and be watchful of statecraft and how these things are orchestrated, because we can go around this dance, and we've been doing it since 1993. In fact, when the Constitution was put in place, the MPP then tradition had said that no, this was the worst document they had ever seen on the continent, and that we were going to get a new constitution in the shortest possible time. We are here over 30 years now, and we are still indulging in this game. You've seen my majority leader also talk about the need for a substantial review. Listen, it's not anything different from what they said in 2010, and we are here 12 years later. So I guess I've lost the pretense, right, that comes with, something is going to happen in the Constitution, but it's a document that favors the political class. And that's why they are very much opposed to any idea of talking about the change of the document, because they understand that any change of it will go substantially to affect the ways in which we have structured government that favors a certain limited class of people. And so they continue to throw in this review there. They give you a sense of buzz and excitement about it. But honestly, let's go back to the budget that was presented this year. Did we see any budget allocated for consultations and any activity towards constitutional amendment? No. It gives me a clearer sense that it's not executive priority at this time. So if a wing of the executive, which is the NCC, comes out and says this statement, they've known this a long time ago. We've been talking about this forever. So what has changed now? Did they present any budget towards educating Ghanaians towards a need for a referendum? The NCC did not. In fact, in preparation for this day, one of the things which the country has been doing is that we've been talking to Ghanaians across the country, whether you have ever even seen the constitutional document and then read it, together with those who have not seen it and those who have not read it. About 86% of our people have never seen nor read the Constitution. That is damaging for a democracy which has committed money and has a whole institution which has branches across districts in the whole country to be educating people on the Constitution. It is part of the gimmick. And I cannot explain, I cannot find new ways to explain how nothing is going to happen, because the system doesn't want it to happen. And if we want something to be changed or reviewed, overhauled, whatever form we say we want it, because I don't want us to be distracted in, oh, you guys say you want the change, but review is what we need. That's why no action is being taken. For those who believe in a review, go ahead then. Initiate the process and do something about the Constitution process. They're not going to do anything. And that's kind of what I want Ghanaians to be aware of and not fall into this game, really.
Bakavoma is convener for Fix the Country protest. Let me bring back Mr. Opoko Ajiman, and now I acknowledge that Mr. Akpebu has joined now. But Mr. Opoko Ajiman, let me find out from you, is there the political will? The two major political parties have been accused of lacking the political will, to effect changes in the Constitution. What's your reading of this accusation?
Well, fortunately, I am not in the political arena. Therefore, as for whether they have the will or not, I am not in a position to answer. But I have been in this field for a long time, and sometimes I shudder when people are in opposition. They say something different. When they get to power, they say something different. As for constitutional overhaul there are certain things that can be done easily without any, but the interest. So when I see people being emotional, very sentimental, I love it. Provided that will be consistent when they get the opportunity. Because when they get the opportunity, that is where the song change. That is what amazes me in this country. So I don't have a problem. But the challenge that I have, let people who always talk about overhaul. You see, sometimes when you are holding something, you don't know what you are holding until you lose it. This Constitution, notwithstanding its imperfections, you and I, as a journalist like myself, we should cherish it. Because a constitutional change should not be born out of sentiments and people having issues with one party or the other. but something that go to the root of whatever discussion. When we do that, I think it serves everybody's interest rather than, that's why I said, if you want to change a constitution like what we have, a constitution that has been able to survive this long, what you have to do is that we must go into substantive matters rather than a political manifesto. When that happens, you won't get the broad consensus. And once there's a broad consensus lacking, I can bet you that it will go nowhere. But let me tell all others who are asking for, maybe they wish that the Constitution is overhauled. When we say overhauled, is it replaced with something else? Please think about it seriously. Because I was a journalist at Ghana Broadcasting, and I saw when there's no constitution in this country, what journalists went through in going through artillery fire in order to get to broadcasting, to go and even read news. So please, let us be careful when we talk about overhaul. What do we mean by overhaul? Replacement? I don't think so. There are certain things that all of us may agree. I agree with him. Politicians always have a change in song. But luckily for some of us, we have to be consistent in what we are clamoring for in this country. And I hope the person who spoke, I hope when the opportunity comes and when he gets the opportunity, he will not change like what I have seen in my life. Because in my lifetime in this country, I have seen a lot. When they are here, this is what they say. Constitutional review is important, but it must not be tailored towards a manifesto of a certain political agenda, but rather it should be based on national consensus. When that happens, we won't waste $6 million in setting up a committee that was bound to fail. That's all I can say, because I believe that the Constitution has useful portions. Certainly, there are problematic areas. Let's identify those areas, but we should not do it wholesale, but rather identifying some of the key things that you and I will agree on and then change, rather than coming out with 164 reviews. 164. The Constitution has how many articles? And if you come out with 164 reviews, that means you are going to throw away the Constitution. When that happens, it becomes a problem. And now, let people, I believe that we saw what happens in our parliament. People were criticizing it. I criticized it too. But it is better to do that, see that brawling in parliament than to exchange of guns and exchange of fire, where people will suffer revolutionary justice and some will be killed. The Constitution has prevented. You saw parliamentarians doing all manner of things which were sometimes distasteful, but it is better than to see them exchange fire or exchange fire in broadcasting house where some of us were working. So please, let us all, it is good. This holiday, constitutional holiday, I believe that it's good that this holiday has come for you and I to interrogate this constitutional dispensation that we have. Yes, we have problems, but I think notwithstanding the imperfections and the problems, this constitution has at least served a purpose for which it was promulgated.
I'm grateful for your time. Maxwell Opoku Agyemang is a constitutional lawyer and acting director of the Ghana School of Law. And I want to introduce Mr. Martin Kpebu, who is also a constitutional lawyer, and Professor Kweku Asare, who is a professor of law. And let me start from where Maxwell Opoku Agyemang left. He says we don't need a total overhaul. Mr. Kpebu, what's your stance on the ongoing debate? Do we need a total overhaul or amendment to portions of the Constitution?
Aisha, it may well turn out that they are all saying the same thing. Because if we are amending portions, eventually it may lead to a total overhaul. So for me, it's exciting that so far everybody agrees that this our Constitution is no longer fit for purpose. We need to do something very urgently about it. The major problem of the Constitution is that it has concentrated too much power in the presidency, and that is endemic to our development. So once we all agree on the general principle that we have an authoritarian constitution, well, we can sit across the table, then tabulate all the changes we want. Yes, we know the Constitutional Review Commission did some work, but because of issues of acceptance here and there, it looks like it's inevitable that we have to go through a certain exercise again for people to validate the work of the commission or something of that sort to get more broad-based acceptance, okay? So let's not underrate what we've achieved so far, and that is the fact that we all agree that we must do something about the Constitution. No two ways about that, and that's a good starting point. So for me, the next thing is, let's see how many agree that we should cut down the president's powers. And that is the heart of the matter. That's the kernel of the matter, because everything lands on the president's desk. And so when you create a constitutional sort of dictatorship, you can't have the best development, okay? So let's just do it. Let's just do it in such a way that we can move forward as a people. Let's cut down the presidency powers. One, when it comes to the ministers, okay? Can we have it done in such a way that he alone does not have to appoint all? Can we do that proportional kind of representation when it comes to even ministers? That would be super, so that the president alone doesn't choose everybody. You come to the judiciary. We don't want the president to appoint the Chief Justice, Court of Appeal judges, Supreme Court judges, and all that. No. We want true independence for the judiciary. So the Judicial Council should be responsible for appointing the Chief Justice. And the president should no longer have so much influence in that. Let the president concentrate on the executive. He doesn't have to hire and fire High Court judges, Court of Appeal judges, Supreme Court judges. Actually, I don't know how true it is. Somebody did a tabulation of all the appointments, and he says the number about 6,000. I should think actually it will be more. Yeah, it will be more because, even police service and all that, the public service, everything eventually is the president who is responsible. These are the things we want to take over. The heads of when I say take over, that's to say, let's bring the people in, let's make it more participatory. Let's more, so you often hear participatory democracy. It is time for us to give more teeth to it. Yes, I acknowledge that we participate by voting in elections, but that is not sufficient at all. The various regimes over the years have shown that elections alone are not enough by way of citizens' participation. We want to have participation in appointments of certain offices. So you see the constitutional bodies, the Electoral Commission, the president should no longer be the one to appoint. No, Chief Justice, I've already mentioned, the IGP. Are you aware that even when the police appear before the Constitutional Review Commission, they made it clear that they are not interested in the president appointing the IGP. No. So we want independence for the police as well. You say, so the president should call executive functions. Let the police council appoint an IG, and let us have a lot more of civil society participation in the police council. Right now, yes, the GBA has representation and all that, but that's not sufficient. We need to increase more. So for me, as I said, it's very exciting that we've all agreed that we need to do something about the Constitution. And for me, that is more than 50% of the way. As to the specifics, let's regroup. See the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Agredaku, the Chief Director. They were convening a conference to look at the Constitutional Review Commission to kind of solicit more ideas, and then, for lack of a better word, to kind of validate some of the the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Commission. Yes, it's good because it's been some years since the Constitutional Review Commission finishes work, we are aware of the government white paper and all that. But we cannot run away from the fact that it wasn't this administration that championed that review. So naturally, we need to do more to get the buy-in of the current administration, and then we can implement. But the key thing is this, Aisha, after today, when next are you going to have another Zoom to check on the progress? Because we all keep talking about it until Dr. Agridaku convened the meeting, and then the meeting too got cancelled, I think in the throes of passion about the e-levy. The e-levy took all the attention. That is my guess. So that conference got cancelled. I think we'll ask Dr. Agridaku to go back to the drawing table and come back with a new date so that we will picking steps on it. Because look, this review of the Constitution.
All right, so Martin Kpebu there, I think we've lost him briefly. He will join again. Let me bring in Professor Asari. Professor Asari, is your view different from that of the two lawyers? I mean, should we overhaul the Constitution? Is there anything wrong with the Constitution in its state?
I'm assuming that's just a rhetorical question, because by definition, every constitution is imperfect. And if you want to know why it's imperfect, you just look at the Constitution itself. It has a whole chapter that is devoted to amending it. The Constitution is a living document. It's drafted, and then people have to live with it for many years. Things change, society evolves, and as things change and society evolves, then the Constitution has to be amended accordingly, or sometimes even interpreted to embrace the change.
Yeah.
The difficulty we have in Ghana is, instead of just amending the Constitution where there are problems, we prefer to talk about it all the time. That's really, I'm really amazed that we are always debating, should we change the Constitution, should we do that? All of that come to nothing. The most important thing is, if people feel strongly about some ills in the Constitution, they garner signatures or whatever, draft an amendment bill, get a parliamentarian to sponsor that bill, and push that bill through the process that the Constitution itself has designed. But all other things that we do, that's just noise.
So we've all agreed that there's no political will between the two major political parties. They come in opposition, they say something different. Once they are in power, they say something different. I mean, what should be the way forward how do we move on from here, Prof?
There is political will. The Constitution has been amended before. The Constitution was amended in 1996. Okay. Most people don't realize that.
Okay.
Even as we are speaking, there is a constitutional amendment bill that is in Parliament that I'm involved.
Okay.
So the important thing is, if people want some provisions of the Constitution to be amended, they have to be proactive. Okay. They just, rather than just come and talk about how the Constitution should be amended and how people, you champion, you draft a bill, you get someone to sponsor it, and then you push it through Parliament. Okay. That is how it's done everywhere in the world.
Okay.
A constitution amendment process is not going to be easy, but it requires people who are dedicated to change, who would push it, and it has to be a gradual process. Okay. The whole idea of sitting down to rewrite the whole constitution or to amend 50 articles, that's just not how constitutions operate. And if you operate a constitution that way, you are creating constitutional instability. The Constitution must be accepted as the guiding document going forward, and then we make piecemeal amendments as and when specific provisions become too difficult for the people to handle.
Okay, so let's talk about the bill that is in Parliament, which you are involved. What does it seek to amend?
It seeks to amend Article 94(2)(a) and Article 8(2), both of which deal with how and whether we should involve people who owe allegiance to countries other than Ghana in the public space.
Okay.
The amendment seeks to involve all Ghanaians, and it says that if you are a Ghanaian especially a natural-born Ghanaian, then you should not be excluded from holding any public office. Rather, you should disclose to the people that you have another citizenship, and the people should take that into account when they vote. Some people may care about that and will not vote for you, fine. Some people may not care about that and would vote for you, fine. So that is the essence of the two bills, two constitutional amendment bills that we have in Parliament right now.
What's the progress as we speak?
It's in committee, and the one on the constitutional amendment is with the Council of State.
Okay, and all right, so we're looking forward to this happening when Parliament resumes?
Precisely, yes.
All right, I wish you all the best with this one. Hopefully it will pass and others can follow. I'm grateful for your time, Professor Kweku Asare. He is a professor of law. And I want to thank Martin Kwebu, who is also a constitutional lawyer. We lost him briefly, but he made his point. So do you think, what do you think of Constitutional Day holiday? Here are some views from the streets of Accra.
Well, I haven't even thought about today being a constitutional holiday. I'm a businessman and I don't really focus on government businesses. So I'm not well in tune with the constitutional affairs of the country.
Constitutional holiday is a new policy that has been brought into the country. So each and every one is celebrating it aside. Yeah. That's what we are only resting. You know, during holidays, you need to be in the house and have a rest, have a chat with your family, and have fun.
I think is that it reminds us of the Constitution, 1992 Constitution, how it came about and the logics behind why they were put in place in the Parliament. For me, I am busy at the office, so I have so much to do, and I'm on my way to the office to get my works done.
So every day we are expected to live our lives in conformity with what the Constitution states. So I don't necessarily think that a special day should be designated for a Constitution Day, because the Constitution guides our lives every day as citizens. Without a Constitution, definitely there would have been chaos. Probably if we as citizens and the government, gubernatorial actors, do the needful in ensuring that the details of the Constitution are truly enacted, the concept of balancing of powers, you know, effecting punishments for people who contradict the whims and caprices of the Constitution are probably dealt with, then probably you could see that there should be much enthusiasm celebrating a day like this, knowing that you are remembering and you are kind of using days like this to give more rights to people, to to praise the government for actually ensuring that the rule of law is operating well. So for me, until we reach a point at Africa, at Ghana, where rules are effected, the Constitution is effected well, people are punished accordingly, then a day like this will be like any other day.
Well, Interior Minister Ambrose Derry has poo-pooed suggestions by some that the 7th January declared as Constitutional Day is an idle holiday. He noted that the Constitution will make the people reflect, improve and consolidate the gains made by the people in embracing multi-party democracy. He said one aspect of the country's democratic ideals which needs to be developed and built on is tolerance. Ambrose Derry was speaking in an exclusive interview with JoyNews' Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam, who called on Ghanaians to be tolerant and respect for each other views which the Constitution requires from the citizenry.
What is happening in Parliament now, in the 8th Parliament of the Fourth Republic, is a matter of concern. I say so and I want to put it in context. This is the 8th Parliament, and probably when the President decided and we went to Parliament to declare 7th January Constitutional Day, some people thought it was an idle holiday. It is not an idle holiday. We want people to wake up from complacency, that we think that we have arrived as a multi-party democracy. Yes, within the region we are a shining example, but I believe that the Constitutional Day should give us an opportunity to reflect and improve and consolidate. And one aspect of our democratic attitude that we must develop and build on is tolerance of different views. And that's what we need to build on.
We're still live on the Pulse, and we are also streaming live on YouTube and all our social media handles. It's on Joy News on TV. You can also tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is @Nana Aisha. We'll take a break, but still to come, exactly a year ago, President Akufo-Addo was announced winner of the 2020 polls. A year on, we are asking, has the Nana Addo's government satisfied Ghanaians? We'll bring you views on the streets and also analysis from a political scientist. Stay with me. Exactly a year ago, President Akufo-Addo was announced winner of the 2020 polls. It may feel like just yesterday, but it's been exactly a year since the president was sworn into office to serve another 4-year mandate. He beat John Mahama by a margin of about 500,000 votes, securing a total of 6,730,413, representing 51.295%. But a year on, an election petition, a series of demonstrations, labor agitations, and increasing cost of living, the jury is out on whether President Akufo-Addo and his government have lived up to expectation. We'll be hearing the verdict of a political scientist. First, though, listen to what some of you have been telling us.
The first term was better, but I believe the COVID-19 affected his second term. So, things are not moving on well as it should have been. The COVID-19 really affected his second term. It's affecting his second term. Fuel prices are high, but it's all over the world.
For the first term, he did very well, and then I think things work out. But the second term seems the way things are going, and then there has been new implementation of, I think, the e-levy, and then the way some workers, especially those who are not all that educated, are complaining about the economy. I think there has been a hardship in the economy, and then people are suffering a lot. Yeah, I think, and then there has been inflation is everywhere, and then day in, day out, price of goods are always increasing. So I think if the president can do something about that one too, I think for the second term he's doing well. But for the look of things, the way inflation and then those things are happening, if he can do something to help us, I think we'll be cool with it.
People don't have work to do, and then people are suffering. So what I'm suspecting for the president what he will do, he said, people need work. So people, they are make criminal things. So if they like work day, and then I think say people no go do that. So what I'm begging the president to say, now people need work.
First term is a little better. None of them is okay, but the first term is better. Second term, not encouraging at all. It's been challenging. It hasn't been encouraging. The governance, the management, the economy, we are all reading and we are all seeing stuffs. So we hope that he does well. By the time he leaves his office or by the time his term ends, he proves something right.
Now, well, the NDC says government has only been insensitive to the plight of Ghanaians. Whilst the NDC says so, the New Patriotic Party is insisting that the Akufo-Addo government is on course to delivering all of its promises to the Ghanaian people. Well, what do political scientists think of 1 year of Nana Addo Dankwa's second term in office? Asa Sante is Senior Lecturer, Department of Political Science and Director at the Center for European Studies, University of Ghana. I will try and get him to do an assessment of 1 year of second term of Akufo-Addo. But on Twitter, there's been a lot of comments over there. Let's go there and see some of the comments that you've been sharing with us on Twitter. Okay, so there was a poll and says Friday, 7 January marks 1 year since President Akufo-Addo took the oath of office for his second and final term. On a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being poor and 4 being excellent, how would you rate his performance in the last year? And this was the poll. So 1 had 66.2%, 2 had 16.7%, 3 had 8.9%, and 4 which is excellent, 8.2%. I've now been joined by Dr. Asante, who is a senior lecturer at the Department of Political Science and director of the Center of European Studies at the University of Ghana. I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Asante.
Aisha.
So first of all, I want your candid assessment of the Nana-Addo-led administration a year in the second term.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I must say that, yes, even though we are looking at a 4-year cycle, from this discussion, we just want to find out what the government has done or achieved within this 1 year. I will look at it from a number of perspectives. One, I want to look at it from the point of view of governance, which is a big concept, which include all manner of variables, including the economy. We are aware that COVID has played a very important role in undermining the economic fortunes of this country. That is in no doubt. And countries all over the world are struggling very hard to get themselves above port. However, we have seen that gradually the economic governance of this country is becoming a difficulty for the government due to a lot of pressures and a lot of factors such as waste that has characterized a lot of things that we do in this country, pushing the government into a very tight corner. Of course, government has, in all this thing, has also done well to, as it were, maintain some, semblance of stability in the area of the economy. But the truth remains that there are difficulties. There are difficult times, and people are struggling to make ends meet. That is a fact that nobody can controvert that. We have also, if you look at it from the point of view of development, I'm talking about infrastructure development. We were promised that we are going to have a year of roads and all that. Let us remember that infrastructure has been a bane for this country. And why that has been consistent is because we have not paid attention as government dealing with this issue head on. What is more is that citizens have also lost their power to hold politicians to account in handling these things to the appreciable levels that we expect from them. Why am I saying that? Government that we have had in this Fourth Republic, including this particular government, will always promise us that, yes, we're going to do infrastructure development and all that. We see that. Take issue of road, for instance. They come construct road, and in no time, these things are washed away by flood and all that. It becomes a very important question to answer, that what goes wrong or what has gone wrong, simply because of poor monitoring and supervision and all that. And we as citizens have not been able to punish politicians for all these wrongdoings. So they get away with this, and we spend all manner of resources to build infrastructure which does not last. And that is one thing that is lacking. For the second tenure of MPP administration, we have not seen much in terms of infrastructure development, but it's too early days yet. Because if you look at the fact that the government has a 4-year tenure, then we can say that within this period, we expect that something meaningful will come out. We also have seen within this 1 year issue of civil society groups coming up to also fight within the political space to ensure that we get the basis of governance right. For instance, we saw the group of Fix the Country, the activities and all that. Even though people like us said that, yes, what they were asking for was legitimate and all that, looking at some of the very important things that they touch on, such as issue of taxation, issue of high prices for fuel and whatnot. But some of us also pointed out to them that it was their call was unfair to government, given the fact that government has a duration of 4 years and then it had just started. All these things put together, it paints a certain picture to us that government needs to sit up properly and get its act together and right the wrongs that we have in our system. After all, why do we give power to politicians? It's just to make sure that we put things in the right perspective for us to have a meaningful life. And we are saying that on the issue of civil society group, yes, civil society has been independent, they fight for their interests and all that. We have seen very little attack on civil society activities in this country. That is a class that I want to comment. Issue of security, yes, the security people, in spite of resource constraints and all that, they've been able to work fairly to protect you and I, for us to have a safe country to live in. But of course, there are little aberrations that we have also seen that are also worrying. And I'm sure that going forward, they have taken political notice of all these things and they want to right the wrongs. But I must say that they have from security perspective, we have seen some meaningful stability that exists in the country. On the issue of unemployment, this has been an albatross around the neck of government, in spite of government numerous programs such as planting for food and jobs and what have you. But we are still having large army of young youth, young people on the streets who have qualifications have no employment. And this is a worrying development. If you look at the promise given to the electorate during the campaign, one would have thought that by now we would have seen more improved conditions in terms of area of employment, and that has not come yet. We hope and pray that the years ahead, government will step up the game and will be able to improve the lot of young people for them to be able to get jobs and meaningful living.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So all in all, we are saying that we have a mixed bag, positive, negative.
Let's look at priorities for government. For you, which areas are should government tackle within the short to medium term, and which ones should be for the long term? I mean, in terms of policies and directions.
Yeah, for long term and then short term, we cannot do without touching on the economy. The economy is critical.
Yeah.
There are certain short term measures that they can take to bring relief to the suffering masses of the people of this country. That should not be something difficult for government to handle. But of course, there are some economic policies that, require long gestation period and all that. That can be worked on gradually for us to get to our destination. So it's one of the priority areas that government must focus attention and focus very well. Because without the economy, forget about all that we are doing, nobody can survive. So it's so critical. So tie in there is the issue of unemployment is becoming a very difficult situation for people to handle in this country. You train people in the schools and then they come out and they have no jobs. It's very worrying. Government must, put in every measure to ensure that we go out of rhetoric and then come to the reality of ensuring that our youth get employment. Sometimes I get the feeling that sometimes government is bereft of ideas because you want to, ensure that the youth get employment, but ideas that will generate employment, we don't see it coming. Government must be open and then have dialogue with groups that can help government to come out of this quagmire. It's gradually becoming a problem, and I think that government must double its efforts to ensure that the youth get employment and then they become stable in the society. Issue of infrastructure development is critical. If you look at every nook and cranny of this country, infrastructure development, we have serious deficits here. It's simply because of certain attitudes that we have. For instance, issue of corruption has affected infrastructure development in this country. We build roads and in no time they are destroyed and we are not able to hold anybody to account. And for me, I place the blame at the top level. the ordinary man, you and I voters, that we want to ensure. I believe that going forward, the citizens might shine their eyes, if you permit me to use that expression, and ensure that whatever infrastructure that they put in place, they will stand the test of time. If they fall short within the standard, I mean, it should be grounds for us to reject such groups when they come to us for support in terms of voting. That should be easy. But sometimes you realize a certain nonchalant attitude of voters, and that has also culminated in some of these things. Issues such as what? Oh, I love the party. There's a party tradition. We can't say much because it's our party which is in government. That attitude must be a thing of the past. Nobody hates any party. But the first thing that we want is that a betterment of this country. And we want leaders who will be able to deliver the public goods. If they fall short of that, we should be able to let them know that we are not satisfied. When citizens begin to take this posture or take this position, we'll get things done in the right manner.
I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He's senior political lecturer at the political department of the university, political science department at the University of Ghana. He's also director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Deploy a self-registration app in dealing with the congestion that has characterized the second phase of the SIM card re-registration. That's the call by a member of Parliament's Communications Committee, Sam Jatta George. His call follows the delays and long queues mobile phone customers have had to endure during second phase of the SIM card re-registration. The exercise, which will end in March this year, has seen customers throng the telco service centers to capture their biometric details, leading to massive queues and considerable discomfort, as my colleague Manuel Krantings report.
Long queues, wobbling legs, and exhausted customers. The typical scenes at the many mobile operator outlets across the country on Thursday. This has been the trend since the new year started, as subscribers race against time to meet the National Communications Authority's March 31 deadline for the re-registration of all SIM cards using only the Ghana card. The queues, which start forming as early as 5 a.m., will just not move.
Today, we're able to do it. Definitely, we will stop. We won't do it. We'll go to space and then do our normal calls. As during that time, we do it because if we see how the service is not working, we are supposed to go to work today, but because of the SIM registration, we are here. We've left everything in the house. You see, it's going against us.
I came here yesterday around 6. I couldn't do it because after being through the line, told me that I have to do some linking, and because I've done the linking yesterday, I cannot do it yesterday now, so I have to come next day. Yeah, it's today that I came back, they said there's no network, so we are still there.
What time did you get here today?
I get here around 7. He said I didn't go work. Today I didn't go work. If I'm not able to do it today, that means tomorrow I have to come back again. You see, that means I've wasted all my strength.
I almost yellow. Almost network in
We have been in this queue for so long, and they say the network is down. We have left our work and we are here. If we leave, we may not return. We were here.
Because what Jawa Juma and say Nano Udi register Usimno. Sir Usa Cobio my be a chance.
At the Ring Road office of MTN, the wait had almost become a punishment. The legs of 66-year-old Auntie Emilia could not hold any longer. She finally sat on the bare floor after waiting several hours without progress.
And passes na yewa Efrenima and I ever join line. So yeah, well I know Musa, you see network.
I've been in this queue since then, and they keep telling us the same thing. They say if we can't wait. The only problem is that no one can do it in our stead, so we have to come ourselves. This is so frustrating.
Yes, I yet now. Say network ni ba na ya say mba so na this na ya. Bia my chance say obi mbeye mo. Ti na mi ba.
The picture was not so different at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle branch of Vodafone. The queues were similarly long, with some of the customers threatening to abandon the process altogether.
The line, even the queue is not going. And so for me, I want to go home. I want to come later on, maybe next month. Because for me, I've already done the process on my phone. It's left with the caption of the fingers and look at the queue.
Meanwhile, there are growing calls for the National Communications Authority to roll out more flexible alternatives to facilitate the adherence to the directive.
Traveled where I went. How they did it was that there was some people who comes to do it for you at home. I think if they do it that way, it will be a little better than all of us coming to join here. They can even send some of the agents to go to houses to do it for them. I think that one will be best.
Though the officials at the outlets will not go on record with the news team, they cite the unresponsiveness of the registration platform for the undue delay in the process. Manuel Cranting, JoyNews, Accra.
Comms Chamber Dr. Ken Ashigbe says the app being used has had some downtime, but which is being worked on. Dr. Ken Ashigbe says they have plans to decentralize the process and go down into communities, schools and other such places to reduce the crowd at the service centers.
Challenges that are confronting us is the fact that we're using an application that has been developed by the NCA's technical partner, GVG, which then allows the second phase of the registration. This particular app has, the new app has had its challenges that are in there. And then also the app itself, by its very nature, requires you to use a high-spec phone that will be able to take pictures of the biometric, the thumb prints as well as the facial pictures as well. And so, because of that, in the past, you could use basic feature phones to do a lot of these registration. What is done is that now it's reduced the numbers of touch points that you have, to some extent by even about 90%. And so you are just using about just 10% of these devices. And that has resulted in the long queues that we're seeing. So the NCA to be able to deal, and then KLGBT to deal with the technical challenges that confront us. And then also in terms of making sure that other venues and other locations, including going into the communities, going into institutions. And for me, I think as a last resort, being able to even then put up a system that does a lot of self-service, even with a second, then we will be able to reduce the numbers that we are seeing, be able to improve, the customer experience.
That was Ken Ashigbe, who is CEO of Telecoms Chamber. But lawyer, security and data protection analyst Desmond Israel is calling for an extension of the March deadline, which he says is not feasible. He's unhappy with the frustration people have had to go through to get their SIM cards registered, with the card adding it could have been better if the exercise was well coordinated.
I think that we are not only dealing with the issue which I had earlier on indicated should be a problem with data silos, which I'll go into that as we go on. But I also think we are dealing with system inefficiency. And for those of us in system design at this enterprise magnitude, there are actually 4 things that were supposed to have been taken care of: compliance, security, availability, and performance. So where we are likely dealing with a system that is overwhelmed by the numbers, a system that has not integrated these modules properly. So most likely when you start make some entry, it crashes to process some of those things appropriately. And that all comes into maybe user acceptance testing, which means that someone should have done some rigorous testing on the application before it goes live. These are not conjectures. These are actually things that happens on the field, which is required to have been done. So if we already have an application that it's not loading. The user says it crashes, it can't come up. At a point, they've not got connection, it's off link. All these things will go down to a proper system design, and also looking at the forest that I have identified, which comes with every technology implementation, i.e., you look at the security of it, you look at the compliance posture of it, you look at the performance of that system, and you also look at the availability of it. And clearly, we are having issues with availability and performance because since the registration started, that's the challenge that we have in analysis about everything else from the user experience all the way to even the hosting of the application. You likely will know that the bottlenecks are on the application side. From the interviews that were also done by your reporter, it's also clear that you have the agents and the some of the telco representatives also pointing out that this does not belong to them, belongs to the NCA, and therefore the other question is, what do we seek to achieve with having a separate application called the SRA, which is SIM registration application, collecting information that the NIA platform that has already collected, which point I made in the morning, that actually sends us back, which is the issue of data silos and data bureaucracies and institutions trying to hold on to data. They may or may not be the case, but this is what we can glean from everything else that is happening with these whole validation of biometric information and all that. Now, having said that, I would have thought that instead of trying to do the biometric identification all over again, where we go in there and we have to, give out biometric information again, this biometric information is stored on our cards. It's actually with the with the NIA at first glance. Now, if the NIA system has been, clearly properly developed, then I would have anticipated that we would have maybe what we call application program interface components to hit the database without necessarily migrating the database to the NCA, and then we use a biometric authentication process rather than the identification process, because clearly under the authentication process, what we seek to achieve is that the data that is already there would be run against a reference module. So it's much faster and easier. It would have probably dealt with these application bottlenecks, trying to bring the application up all over again and all that. And also would have dealt with the data silo issue where we have multiple data sitting everywhere. I mean, every institution that is doing biometric registration is sort of like doing these on their own. I don't know at which point we want to do the integration, but if we were to do our homework well, we clearly should have with this issue that we are having now. And that's the problem that I have with it as a professional.
Well, Deputy Ranking on the Communication Committee of Parliament, Sam George, has been making suggestions to government to better the exercise. On his Facebook page, he told government to deploy a self-registration app in dealing with the congestion that has characterized the second phase of the SIM card re-registrations. Here are excerpts of his post. He says, I have followed the chaos and troubles innocent Ghanaians have had to endure this new year, all in the name of SIM card re-registration. It is sad, pathetic, and heartbreaking to see the endless queues during productive working hours and in an Omicron COVID-19 environment. On a matter of principle, I am not against a SIM card re-registration. I am, however, against the narrow and cumbersome approach the National Communications Authority and the Ministry of Communications and Digitization have taken. I believe the interpretation of LI 2006 and combined effect of LI 2111 do not sum up to the dreadful spectacles we see. I urge the ministry to, as a matter of urgency, employ a two-pronged approach. Firstly, the ministry should expand the acceptable documentation for registration to include the voter's ID card and the Ghanaian passport. Secondly, the ministry should deploy a self-registration app and short code that allows you to upload the details of these biometric cards. That is a Ghana card, voter's ID card, and Ghanaian passport. This is a pragmatic approach that protects Ghanaians in this pandemic era, ensures massive compliance with the registration directives, and provide us a safer digital ecosystem. I hope the ministry takes these suggestions in good faith and explore implementation protocols. This afternoon, nearly 3,000 people lost their lives to road crashes in 2021 alone. That's according to the latest official data released by the Police Motor Traffic and Transport Department. A total of 2,924 died, representing a 13% increase in the 2020 figure of 2,589 deaths. The Ashanti region was the worst affected, with a total of 606 people losing their lives in the period. Now, the MTTD has been speaking, and it says it will tighten its belt. It's made some arrests so far, but in 2022, it's going to do more.
Now, capacity together with our partners to detect offensive conduct on the road regarding the non-compliance of safety rules that normally expose all of us to danger. And that our capacity extends to detection. People being forthcoming, irrespective of what you think you are, because all of us are not exempted from the compliance of the rule law, and therefore it's not about for any profession but having a driving license. And anybody who has been privileged to have been issued with a license, if you don't comply with the laws, know that you'll be arrested, and you cannot hide behind any immunity. And that should be made clear to all license holders, because if you are a driver, you are primarily a driver before any other profession. And that if you commit any road offense, know that you have a day in court with police and the court. Compared with the same period last year, this year you have seen a massive increase in terms of those who are arrested for varying offenses last year as compared to 2020. And I believe that as many as were convicted as compared to 2020, and as many as have been fined to pay more than, I believe, 3 million Ghana cedis, and over 30, I believe, have been put in jail. For,
quick clarification, Supo. When you mentioned the 3 million Ghana cedis, for which period? Is it the entire year, or is it just for? Yeah,
as compared to 2020, I think that was increased over the same period of 2020, and I think that we, still have to pride ourselves with the number of arrests. But it is indicative of the level of indiscipline, and that is why it is a ground for us to stand on and admonish our transport operators, and then vehicle owners and drivers to.
Well, Minister for Roads and Highways, Kwesi Amoakwata, is warning any project that stands in the way of the dualized roads government intends to construct this year will be demolished. He says no single individual will be allowed to stand in the way of the national interest. The minister says government's drive to dualize the country's roads is being impeded as some people are deliberately setting buildings in the way of the projects highlighted. He said this when he toured some road projects under construction in Tamale.
The roads minister, Mr. Kwesi Amoakwata, is in the northern region as part of his visit to inspect roads, ongoing road projects in the area. Addressing the media, the minister said government is embarking on a drive to dualize major highways in the country.
The Accra-Kumasi dualization is going on in earnest, and so many sessions will be started, any moment from now. As I drive between Accra and Kumasi, so many private individual projects and developments are coming up, and I get frightened. Everybody wants to cite his project by the roadside, and I'm at this stage advising, and if I am pushed, warning every potential developer. I won't even advise. I am warning every potential developer that you make that mistake and start your construction. We will get to you soon. And when we get to you, even if it's a 10-story building, it will be demolished.
800 cedis is how much it costs to get a child to work on a cocoa farm at a lucrum in the Western North region. The price slightly shoots upwards for children who are older. These are excerpts of JoyNews' latest investigations. A documentary is titled Children in Cocoa Labor. Investigative journalist Kwete Nate reports this illegal trade is negotiated between the farmers and the family of victims of trafficking.
12 million. 50 million.
12 million.
Wait. 50 million. You only need to wake up your fan 50 to 16. Hey, I want to cry your cock. One I'll bet you. It's Yama, Papa. The Bruce, or Monqua. Now, Yassande. Na agency come to obey you my way. I want you to offer no. I feel you are going to kakra. Only to offer no.
Wow.
So,
hey.
So she's saying
that's almost 800. I feel we were years, right? 15.
Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Cocoa Board, Dr. Emmanuel Opoku, says his outfit will not protect any cocoa farmer found guilty of child labor. Dr. Opoku says he said this reacting to a latest JoyNews investigative report. The investigation reveals how children are trafficked for a sum of 1,000 cedis to work on cocoa farms at a lucrum in the Western North region. We'll take a break.
Farmers really know that the use of children for this particular activity is not permissible in cocoa. And so, and that is why I said I'm very sad, because, you know, I would rather want a situation where the people had not been exposed to this kind of activity against children for you to be talking about. But situations where farmers are very educated, then I can say that it is a deliberate thing by certain farmers who are doing that. And I want to appeal to Joy. We do not want such issues to be shelved. When it happens like that, we want the news media to cooperate with us and report such matters to the police so that you draw our attention to it. Because look, I'm the one in charge of this project. I mean, the child labor thing, and it goes straight to my head. But when somebody said that I should listen, at that time where I was, it wasn't possible I could.
Excerpts of our latest Hotline documentary, Children in Cocoa Labor, will air on Monday, January 10 at 8:30 a.m. on the Super Morning Show and 8:30 p.m. on the JoyNews channel. And I must say, that will be it for the polls. My name is Aisha Brian. Many thanks for watching. Let's Talk Showbiz is up next. Enjoy the rest of our programs and have a beautiful constitutional day.